Have you been looking for a film that just changes the way that you think about yourself and your life? The kind of film where you put it on and you aren't expecting to see this story that is going to make you cry or question your entire being or just make you realize how much you love the people that are around you and in your life. Because I'm going to be sharing 8 films that completely changed my perspective and made me realize how beautiful the world really is. Hello and welcome to my channel. If you've not watched my videos before, then hi, my name is Fleur. This is your space for all things self-development where we focus on growth, mindset and becoming the best version of yourself. So welcome to this space. Let's get straight into it without further ado. The first film is Dead Poets Society, which came out in 1989. This is set in a strict all-boys boarding school in the 1950s, where the story follows an English teacher, John Keating, who inspires his students to see poetry and life in a new light, encouraging them to seize the day and think for themselves. Honestly, this film taught me the importance of literature, especially poetry, and how it can open your mind to new ways of seeing the world. And being someone who grew up absolutely adoring literature, adoring books, adoring characters, being able to see the importance that poetry can actually have on people made me realize that poetry is so much more beautiful than we let on. In GCSE level at school, teenagers, we don't really think that analysing literature is important. And I remember that the first lesson that I had in university, because I studied English and creative writing, was the professor basically saying that everything that you've learned in GCSE level, you need to forget it because it's wrong, because the way that we analyse literature and the way that we think about literature at that point of our life is pushing it too much. And I've always thought that saying, oh, the sky is blue and why is the sky blue, is really just dramatising how the author truly wants us to see the story. And Dead Poets Society for me actualized that belief, and it was a reminder that words do have power, and that one teacher or one book or one poem can completely change the direction of our path and how we view our own life. As well as that, I think it also did highlight how intimate, authentic connections can completely transform your life. One thing that I love is brotherhood and girlhood as well, obviously, but what I love about brotherhood is how boys just are always there for one another. I mean, there's a lot of drama with girls, but with boys, it's like there's that sense of connection where even if something goes wrong, it's like you're there for each other. Like you are close, but then they're not very physical with one another. You know, like with girls, they'll hug each other, they might hold hands, and they might go to the bathroom with one another. With boys, it's really unspoken connection, and I actually quite like that. It's very almost secretive, the way that they care for one another. And then in a given situation where it feels right to be able to show their friend how much they mean to them, it actually means more than it does when that affection is consistently shown, because you're really able to see the love that they have for one another. And this film really knows how to portray brotherhood. There is a specific moment in this film that is very gut-wrenching, and honestly the reason why I'm sharing all of these movies today is because there are gut-wrenching moments in them, and I think when you have a gut-wrenching moment in a film, it means so much more to the person watching it rather than it not, because it's realistic. We all have gut-wrenching moments, but that film for me just had everything that I want in a film, and being a poet meant a lot to me. So if you're looking for something like that, then I definitely recommend it. The second film is The Art of Racing in the Rain, which came out in 2019. So this is actually told through the perspective of a loyal golden retriever named Enzo. Now, if you like a film where you get to know the whole story through a dog's perspective, this is the film for you. The story follows his owner, a race car driver named Denny, as he navigates love, loss, and personal challenges, as well as trying to be that dream version of him that he's always wanted to be and pursue his dreams as being a race car driver. The ending scene for this film, I literally was crying so hard. There were 10 tissues around me. I was crying my eyes out. And I was actually watching the film with my mum, but she hadn't been watching enough to be able to understand why I was crying. So when I was crying my eyes out, she literally just looked at me and was like, Flo, what is wrong with you? Are you okay? And I'm like, no. It's just so beautiful and so well written, and whoever came up with that idea needs a raise because it is so good. And I went into this not having much of an idea of what I was going to come out knowing. There was just so much I took away from this film. You know, there's that sense of value with the friendships and love that you have for one another, where even if it doesn't last forever, like even if it was just for a season of your life or a specific period of your life, there will have been a reason why you met that person, and there will be lessons that you would have learned from that person that will carry on throughout your life and throughout you as a person for the rest of your life and for the rest of the time that you're here on this earth. And to know that you don't have to just fall in love to believe it will be forever, that you can fall in love just for that specific period that you're with that person, I think has a sense of sacrifice that is needed in love. Like when you fall in love with someone, you can't assume that you're going to be with them for the rest of your life. You can't assume that you won't have any problems, that if you got married that it wouldn't, you know, that it could possibly end in a divorce, or it might not end, or you might never end up getting married, or you might end up getting married, you might have a family together, you might not have a family together, you might break up before you even get to that point. You can't go into a relationship believing that it's going to be endgame, right? Because that's just naive. And I think the thing is with young puppy love is that you do go into it thinking it's endgame, and then you get your heart broken when you realize that having that belief is what ends up being your worst enemy, because you need to be able to focus on yourself, right? So you need to be able to have those two independent lives and not rely on the other person and have your own life, basically. But when you have that sense of knowing that at any given moment, it could end or something could happen. Life happens to you. So I'm not just saying with relationships, but with friendships, with family, with your career. When you have that sense of urgency to just really appreciate every single moment for what it is, because you don't know what's going to happen next, and you don't know what the universe or God is going to throw at you next, you really appreciate it. Life can throw so many obstacles in your way, but passion and perseverance and love, these are the things that keep us moving forward. As well as that, another thing that I loved, and the last thing I will say because I'm already nattering too much about these films, is that when you want to follow your dreams, the people that are around you should be supporting you. And if there are people in your life who are not supporting you, then the chances are there's a reason behind that. It may be that they're jealous of the fact that you have something that you love and they don't have something that they love. It may be out of fear for the fact that they once followed their dreams and then ended up failing, and they don't want the same thing to happen to you. It may be a number of reasons, right? There is a specific moment in this film where Denny says to his love interest, I'm not going to say any more than that, you just have to watch the film, I don't want to spoil it, that he should probably quit because him pursuing his dream could be a risk to his safety. And, you know, being a race car driver, the races that he was doing were not safe, and there was always a possibility of him being injured, of him being sent away for months at a time on tour, and then, you know, missing very valuable moments of the life that he could have had with that person and the family that they wanted to have. And she basically said, no, like, I love you too much to not let you pursue your dream life. And that to me is true love. Like when you know that even if you have to go without having someone in your life completely there, or without them giving as much as they can to you just because they're pursuing their dream, but you don't mind that because you want them to pursue their dream, that to me is real love, and that to me is real support. And if I had a partner who wanted something so badly, I wouldn't get in the way of that. I would be supporting it, right? And I would hope that they would feel the same way towards me with the dreams that I have, and that they wouldn't be holding me back either. Even if there are risks, even if it's challenging, even if it's difficult, it's worth it, because when you both have something that really lights your fire, you can then bring that together and then create your own fire within that relationship. So that made me realize when watching it that the people that really love you will support you, even if it's difficult and even if it's hard, because as long as you have a smile on your face at the end of the day, then it's worth it. I really love that movie, and you're definitely going to need tissues for that one. Number 3, and a movie that I actually watched when I was younger and over again watched when I was younger, is Life of Pi, which came out in 2012. This follows a young boy named Pi who survives a shipwreck and finds himself stranded on a lifeboat in the Pacific Ocean with only a tiger for company. This isn't just a film of survival. Like, you look at this and you think, yeah, this is a survival film, right? And it is a survival film. But I think with all survival films, there is an underlying message that you will come away having realized once you've watched that film. With survival, one of the main underlying messages that you will have in that film is that whoever that you have with you, that connection comes above everything else, because that is the person that you have in front of you in that moment, right? You know, when you're in a dangerous moment or you're in a moment of risk, whoever is currently around you is all you can see and all you can think about, because you're all in danger together. And that sense of like, at any moment now it could be the end, or at any moment now something could happen to us. Like, when you have that sense of connection with those people around you, it makes you feel connected because you're all thinking and feeling the same things. And yes, I know that in this sense we're talking about a boy and a tiger, but these connections can be from human to animals just as much as they can be from animal to animal or human to human. You know, there were moments where you just felt like giving up. And I think in life, there are always going to be moments where we do feel like giving up, when we have something that we so badly want to achieve, whether it's like survival and you like need to save your life, or it's a dream, or it's a connection that you want with someone. There are going to be moments where you think, what is like the point? And you just feel like giving up because it's difficult. And to our brain, when something is difficult, we automatically assume that that means it's a bad thing and that we shouldn't pursue it. But as I've always said to my friends, that the things that we want in life are actually the hardest things to get, because they're meant to be, in order for us to be tested to know if those things are right for us. So that could look like a relationship that you really want with someone, a friendship that you really want with someone, a career that you really want, the family that you want to have, like whatever it is, right? If it's something you so badly want that it like keeps you up at night and you're thinking like, how do I achieve this thing? Like, how do I become that person? It's going to be difficult, because if it's not, you would take it for granted. And when you eventually get that thing, because it's yours and it belongs to you and it will always belong to you, you will realize the person that you've become on the journey and how important it was for you to achieve that thing. So I really do love that film, and like I said, I'd watched it when I was a child. It's been a while since I've watched it, but it's one of those movies that will just always stay with me. Number 4 is Green Book, which came out in 2018. So this is actually based on a true story, like many of these films that I'm mentioning today. And this film follows a classical pianist, Dr. Don Shirley, and his Italian-American driver, Tony Lip, as they travel through the segregated American South in the 1960s. This film really just, wow. Like, there are moments in this film where I was, again, brotherhood, right? I was just thinking that, what would we do without our friends? And what would we do without connection? And what would we do without knowing that at the end of the day, there is someone that's going to be there for you? And there are some quotes in this film that really just get to you. A few moments where you realize that both of these characters have come from such different backgrounds and such different ideals of how the world works, especially seeing as this is set in the 1960s, where when they come together, it's almost like they're sharing their own individual viewpoints of the world and of themselves and of society and what is right and what is wrong, and like mashing them together to create a separate connection, which is what friendship is about. You know, it's bringing your different individual experiences, pushing them together and creating a specific experience that it is just unique to that person and you. These characters don't know what is right or what is wrong. They only know from what they've learnt, right? But when they teach each other, like for example, Dr. Don Shirley is always saying to Tony that violence is not the answer, and that being able to have peace and keep your dignity is far more important than showing it and like being very overreactive and being violent, right? But with Tony coming from a background where he's used to getting in fights and things like that, he doesn't understand that. He's just thinking, well, no, violence is the only answer. And when you have those like connections where somebody makes you think, oh, I've never thought of it like that before, or wow, like that's so interesting, that's love. Being able to listen to someone and go, you know what, you're right. Like, I've never thought of it like that way. And I'm so happy you told me that, because now I can come away from this conversation having almost a new memory of how I can go about living my life in the future, something that I can come back to. It's like we have these like shelves in our brain, right? And each jar on that shelf is an aura almost. And the aura is something that you pick up from every single connection in your life. And that aura has a different color, a different shape, a different meaning to you for each person that you have a connection with. And those auras make up your aura. Like all these little tiny balls of light, they shape your own light, as well as you obviously having your own light, which you then share to other people yourself. And you know that a little bit of your aura is within other people's mind as well. And when you have all of these different little auras that make up your aura, you are able to like access them as if they were like memories or just slips of information in your mind whenever you're in a given situation. Like for example, maybe in the future Tony would have someone that wants to start a fight with him, and then he'll think, no, Dr. Don, he told me no, not to do that. He told me that violence isn't good. And that will be him reenactioning that conversation that they had. And that, to me, from someone who just loves psychology, is so cool. Like being able to know that these connections have such a meaningful impact in our life. But I love this film, and I also just adore music so much. So again, like having all of that in one film was really wonderful. So I definitely recommend that one. Number 5, and you will definitely know this film, in fact I would be so surprised if you didn't, is Forrest Gump, which came out in 1994. Slow-witted, Forrest has never thought of himself as disadvantaged, and thanks to his supportive mother, he leads anything but a restrictive life. Whether dominating as a college football star, or fighting in Vietnam, or captaining a shrimp boat, Forrest inspires people with his childlike optimism. But one person Forrest cares about most may be the most difficult to save, and that is his childhood love, the sweet but troubled Jenny. There is one specific scene in this film where Jenny is going, "Run, Forrest, run!" And he's just running, and that's when he realizes his love for running from like how fast he's able to run away from these people that are chasing him. And I just think, you just don't forget that scene, and you just don't forget this movie. And you just don't forget how life is so unpredictable. Like with many of the films that I'm sharing today, I had that sense of knowing that yes, life is unpredictable and life is hard. And at the end of the day, your actions and your self-belief and the people that you have in your life will shape how you then move forward in the future. And that is so important. Knowing that is so important. And no matter the circumstances that you may have, you can still find that success and that joy and that purpose, especially if you have people around you who are reminding you of it and who are supporting you and who are pushing you to create that dream. You know, sometimes simplicity and kindness and perseverance will take you further than you believe, than you could have ever imagined. And if you haven't watched it, then I do think you have actually been living under a rock, because I have never met someone who hasn't watched this film. Right, let's go on to the next 2 movies, which arguably probably the most gut-wrenching movies I've ever watched. Number 6, Schindler's List, which came out in 1993. So this is based on the true story of Oskar Schindler, a German businessman who saved over 1,000 Jewish refugees during the Holocaust by employing them in his factories. This film was so gut-wrenching to me, and there is 2 scenes that I will always remember. One of them being the little girl in a red coat. Even the color that has the impact, just know it is a completely black and white film, and then to just have one color and it be red. The color of war, the color of battle, the color of blood. Oh, it's just so good. Like, it's also so, like, it's good, but it's also so heartbreaking. Like, I remember when I had first seen that scene and I realized what happened, I was like, no, you didn't. Who wrote this? Who came up with this idea? Why would you do this to me? It was just so, it's like, I'm a very emotional person, so I cry very easily when it comes to things like this, because I really put myself into the perspective of what it would be like to either be that person or to be someone who is watching that. And that scene, wow, there is just nothing that is portrayed in a movie that was done that well. And really, like, you didn't even need to say anything. There was no talking done. It was just following the little girl and then seeing what happened. Like, oh, please watch this film, please. The second scene being when it is official that the war ended and that all the Jewish people were now safe, when he realizes that and he looks around and he sees that he's only got 1,000 Jewish people around him and that he could have saved maybe another 5 or another 10 or another 20.
And more people. There's been 2 people.
And he just starts crying, and everyone around him is just watching him thinking, no, you're a hero. Like, what you did, that was a heroic act that put him and his life and everyone around him that helped him to risk. And that just reminded me, although it might not seem to have much relevance, that in life there will be moments where we will put our all into something and we will just think that no matter how hard we tried, it just wasn't good enough and that we could have done better. And when you think that way, you will never be satisfied with the outcome and you'll never be satisfied with how hard you worked. And that, to me, again, is heartbreaking, because Oscar did something that thousands and thousands of people didn't have the bravery to do. And if he hadn't done that, he wouldn't have saved all of those people who were then able to make families and proceed with that generation going forward, which is just crazy to me. So this leads me on to number 7, which is Life is Beautiful, which came out in 1997. This film follows an Italian man named Guido who uses his humor and imagination to shield his young son from the horrors of a Nazi concentration camp, convincing him it's all a game. If you know the dance, you know the dance. This film, wow. I didn't even know this film existed for some odd reason. I was limited to The Boy in the Striped Pajamas and Schindler's List, and when my Italian friend told me about this film, she said, no, how have you not seen this? And she hasn't actually seen Schindler's List either, so I said, okay, I'll watch this film if you watch Schindler's List, and we still haven't gotten around to doing that yet, but we will. I just remember thinking, how and why have I gone 21 years of life having not seen this movie and having not had anyone tell me about it? Because wow. I mean, the thing is, right, is you kind of go from 2 perspectives in this film. You start it off, right, with this romance between the mother and the father, and you think, oh, this is such a light-hearted movie, you know, he's trying to get the girl. Wow, that's so cute. No, because then they have a son, and then before you know it, they're being sent off to camp, and then Guido is trying to convince his son that it's all just a silly game and that neither of them are going to die, because he doesn't want his son to grow up having bad memories, or even while he's in it, to see it as something to be feared for. So the entire time he's in the camp, he is literally tricking his son, and his son the entire time is naive and doesn't even understand what's going on. And that amount of bravery and sacrifice that you would need to have as a parent to trick your own narrative to be able to save the narrative of someone you love is never not going to make me cry, because it's so sad and it's very realistic as well. Like if you are in a given situation where you do have a child with you, you are going to do all that you possibly can to protect that innocence, protect that naivety. The fact that he did that to save his son's life, and to literally the very end managed to convince his son that there was nothing to be scared of, even in somewhere where you can arguably say is a place where you would feel the most scared in your entire life, is so sad, and makes me just realize how lucky we are to experience love as human beings. That leads me on to number 8, which is the last film that I'll be sharing in this video, and that is October Sky, which came out in 1999. So again, this is based on a true story and follows Homer Hickam, a young boy from a coal mining town who dreams of building rockets despite his father's disapproval and his father's desire for him to follow in his own footsteps. I watched this film recently, so this is the film out of all of the films that I've shared that is fresh in my mind, and the reason why I wanted to share it is not because it's a gut-wrenching film, because actually this is like one of the only films where you can watch this and like come away feeling inspired, right? I think there's a great balance between these kind of films that do make you question your life and well-being, but then also the kind of films that make you realize, no, oh my god, I need to get into it, I need to snap into it, I need to get started on my dreams. there are going to be moments in your life where you are going to think it's not realistic to follow what you want to do. And there are probably going to be people who are going to tell you that it's not realistic for you to follow what you want to do. But as long as you have that dream and as long as you see it through to the very end, it will happen. And you can really see that with Homer and know that this is a real person who actually ended up being able to get into NASA at the very end of it. So yeah, this is just another incredible film that showcases brotherhood as well, and showcases that as long as you have these connections with one another and you all have that mutual same dream, that you can make it together. And especially with the relationship between Homer and Mrs. Riley, and knowing that when you have that specific idol in your life, because we all have that one person that we look up to, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a parent, whether it's a friend, or whether it's a celebrity, someone that we don't even know, someone online, someone that's not even alive to this day. We all have that one person when we think, okay, when I was a kid, I looked up to them and I knew that I wanted to be like them, right? You take them through every hard challenge that you have, and you know, what would they say to me right now in this given moment, or what would they tell me to do? They would tell me to keep going, they would tell me to stay strong, they would tell me to have that perseverance, to know that even if it's difficult today, I will know tomorrow that I made myself one step closer to achieving my dreams. So having that person is very important because it keeps you inspired. But that leads me to the end of this video. I think I've nattered on now for nearly 40 minutes about how much I love these films, because I do think it's very important that we surround ourselves by this kind of literature, these kind of books, these kind of films, these kind of characters, these kind of stories that do make us question how we want to live our life and how we want to appreciate the people around us, because that's very important. So if you haven't watched any of these films, then please go and at least choose one or two of them and watch them as soon as you can, because they are my favorites and some films that I will take with me to the day I die. And if you enjoyed this video, then give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below telling me what film you have watched and which one of the 8 films that I shared today was your favorite film that you've already watched, and some films that you would like to share with me as well that you think I should watch, because I love films and I will definitely take any recommendations. I post videos every single Sunday at 12 p.m, so I will see you next Sunday. Bye bye, my lovelies.